Thanks for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Jaein in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Korea and the U.S. are set to begin talks on possible revisions to the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement here in Seoul on Tuesday. Things are looking bright for Korean exporters, with outbound shipments in the second quarter growing at the fastest pace among its major peers. These stories and more coming right up. Seoul and Washington will hold a special meeting of the Korea-U.S. FTA Joint Committee this week. Officials from the two sides will discuss the possibility of amending the trade deal, which had been requested by the Trump administration. Our Kim Hae-sung starts us off.
Representatives from South Korea and the U.S. will sit down in Seoul on Tuesday to discuss possible amendments to their free trade agreement. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, Korea's Trade Minister Kim Hyun-jong and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer will open the meeting via a video conference, which will be followed by senior-level discussions between Korean and U.S. trade officials. The gathering comes after Washington requested a meeting in early July to address the U.S. trade deficit with Korea. The FTA, which came into effect in March 2012, has been a source of tension between Seoul and Washington, with President Trump pressing to either renegotiate or terminate the deal, which he has labeled a job killer for Americans. In the years since it has been enforced, Korea's trade surplus with the U.S. doubled from $11.6 billion in 2011 to over $23 billion in 2016. But Seoul points out that the U.S. has enjoyed a surplus in the services sector, seeing it jump from $11 billion in 2011 to more than $14 billion in 2015. Korea's trade ministry emphasized that it will focus on highlighting the positive effects the FTA has had on both economies, and that both sides should first objectively examine, analyze, and assess the pact before attempting to make changes. Other issues expected to be discussed on Tuesday include anti-dumping duties and intellectual property. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
Korean exports have continued to show robust growth in recent months. In fact, it's the only country to post double-digit growth among the world's top 10 exporters in the second quarter. And as our Kim Min-ji reports, the outlook remains bright for the second half of this year.
Korea's export growth continues its upward momentum. According to the World Trade Organization on Sunday, Korea's outbound shipments in the second quarter grew at the fastest pace among the world's 10 largest exporters. The country's exports came to $147.2 billion in the April to June period, up nearly 17% from the same period last year. Korea's exports have been on the rise since last November, ending nearly 2 years of decline. Of the world's biggest exporting countries, Korea was the only one to post growth in the double digits. And with the exception of China, most nations posted growth not even half that of Korea's. Korea was the sixth largest exporter in the second quarter, unchanged from the previous 3-month period. A general pickup in the global economy, meanwhile, has improved global trade overall. Exports from 60 major countries worldwide came to over $4 trillion during the same period, up more than 7% on year. And prospects look bright for the latter half of the year as well. The World Trade Outlook indicator came to 102.6 in August, the highest reading in over 6 years, and suggests that trade growth in the third quarter will be above trend. The indicator provides real-time information on the trajectory of world trade relative to recent trends by combining several trade-related indices. The upward trend in the indicator was attributed to strong growth in export orders, air freight, and container shipping. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
And that double-digit growth could extend into the month of August from what we have seen so far. According to Korea Customs Service, outbound shipments in the first 20 days of August jumped 11.6% compared to the same period last year. Much of the growth was logged thanks to strong demand for semiconductors, which rose more than 42%, and petroleum products up nearly 42%, while auto shipments also rose by 21%. Sectors that saw contraction included ships and mobile devices, retreating 27% and 22% respectively. Export destinations that saw the biggest gains were EU states at 30% and Vietnam at 22%. Korea's producer prices rose slightly in July from a month earlier. According to preliminary data from the Bank of Korea Monday, the producer price index, a key barometer of future consumer inflation, hit 101.84, up 0.1% from June. The central bank attributed the slight increase to price gains in the services and agricultural products, as well as a slower decline in the price of manufactured goods. The price increase was more notable on a year-on-year basis, jumping 3% in July compared to the same period last year, growing for the 9th consecutive month. After a re-examination of 420 egg farms here in Korea following suspicions that their samples did not meet requirements, 3 additional farms were found to be contaminated with banned chemicals. One of them was a farm in Jeollabuk-do province, while the remaining 2 were located in Chungcheongnam-do province. A total of 52 farms in the country have now been found with eggs polluted with insecticides. The government is set to immediately ban all egg shipments from these 3 farms and track down distribution channels to dispose of them completely. Meanwhile, egg sales have also declined sharply, with big box retailer E-Mart saying that it saw an on-week drop of roughly 40%. And now moving on to markets, we have our markets contributor Lee Ji-hye joining us on the line. Hello, Ji-hye.
Hello, Jaein.
All right, so to start us off, tell us how local stocks performed in the first trading day of the week.
Sure. The Kospi started out rather weak today with tensions high amid the Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercise that kicked off today. The benchmark Kospi closed 0.14% lower at 2,355, and the tech-heavy Kosdaq closed 0.42% lower at 640.85. Market bellwether Samsung Electronics lost 0.13%, while steelmaker POSCO gained 2.72%. SK Hynix also gained 0.3%. Hyundai Motors gained 2.72%, and KEPCO also lost 1.45%. The electronics product sector jumped the most by 3.23% from the previous day, followed by display panels, petroleum and gas, as well as steel. On the downward slope, department stores and retail shops were down by 2.9%, followed by airlines and IT service sectors.
Then what are some of the major market events lined up for this week?
Sure. On Monday, the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago will be releasing the Fed National Activity Index. Last month was indeed a strong month for payroll growth, which is likely to lift the index as well as retail sales. Housing permits, on the other hand, may bring down the numbers. On Tuesday, consumer spending accounts will be released with particular attention focusing on this week because vacation season is coming to a close and retailers potentially making most of their profits around this time of the year. The Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium is slated to kick off this Thursday in Wyoming, where Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen is expected to speak. Analysts are keeping a close eye on this meeting, hoping it provides clues on the future policy direction of major central banks around the world. Lastly, on Friday, a local court will hand out the final verdict for Samsung heir Lee Jae-yong, who has been on trial since April. He has been linked to a corruption scandal that led to the impeachment of former President Park Geun-hye, with prosecutors seeking a 12-year prison term for Lee.
Now, what are analysts saying about the joint military drills as well as Korea's FTA Joint Committee talks scheduled for tomorrow?
Well, yes, Jaein, these are also key events to watch for, particularly this week. For the Ulchi Freedom Guardian drills, analysts are saying that the Kospi is likely to stay in negative territory throughout the week, with the North Korean risk casting a looming shadow over the market as the joint drills start. They're predicting that high geopolitical tensions are likely to persist for the rest of this month. Another factor that leaves investors quite uneasy would be the mixed messages regarding the upcoming talks on the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement. After U.S. President Donald Trump called it a horrible deal, the Korean government is trying to tone things down, calling the upcoming talks rather an evaluation of what the deal has achieved and the shortcoming of it so far, instead of calling it a renegotiation. Should the two sides actually reach an agreement on the amendments to the current deal, sectors that would face most in losses would be export-oriented industries such as automobiles and steelmakers, which analysts also say could take a heavy toll on the Kospi index at large. This has been Lee Ji-hye for Business Daily.
Bithumb, a Korean virtual currency exchange, saw its daily trading volume surpassing that of the Kosdaq market. The exchange reported a daily trade volume of $2.25 billion last Friday, more than the $2.18 billion in the Kosdaq on the same day. Bithumb's trading volume has more than doubled in the past 10 days after breaching $1 billion earlier this month. The rising price of Bitcoin, now at over $4,000 per coin, has boosted the value of other virtual currencies, one of them being Ethereum, which has jumped tenfold in the first half of the year. President Moon Jae-in wrapped up the weekend by addressing the nation on the accomplishments of the People's Transition Committee. He reaffirmed his efforts to create quality jobs for young people, calling it a critical step in reversing the effects of the country's chronically low birth rate. Our Hwang Ho-jun has more.
Just 3 days after President Moon's 100th day in office, an unprecedented and unconventional Q&A event was hosted by the Presidential Office of 청와대. The hour-long event that was broadcast live on national TV took place at the reception hall of the Blue House in the format of a talk show and began with a musical performance. Around 280 citizens from various backgrounds who all voluntarily took part in the so-called People's Transition Committee and had made policy proposals on and offline were invited to ask questions about the government's new policies and reforms. The president's top aides and cabinet members, including the Foreign Affairs Minister, Interior Minister, Health Minister, and Culture Minister, participated to provide the answers. But the highlight of the night was when President Moon once again pledged to create more jobs and to tackle the nation's declining birth rate. He addressed his critics who opposed the idea of using taxpayer money to create jobs.
일자리 만들기는 청년들에게 희망을 주는 일뿐만 아니라 세금 덜 많이 내고 또 소비하는 사람들을 늘리는 길이거든요. 그것을 통해서 경제가 성장하는 거죠. 그리고 지금 심각한 저출산 고령화 문제에 대한 해법이기도 합니다. 그래서 국민 세금을 일자리 만드는 데 쓰는 것은 세금을 가장 보람 있게 사용하는 것이다.
President Moon also reaffirmed his determination to allow enough time for both mothers and fathers to be involved in child-rearing by limiting working hours to 52 hours a week from the current 68, while expanding parental leave and allowing workers to use all their annual paid holidays. Before the night ended, President Moon vowed to continue listening to the voice of the people.
문재인 정부도 이런 국민들의 집단 지성과 함께 나가는 것이 국정을 성공할 수 있는 그런 길이라고 생각합니다. 온라인, 오프라인 가리지 않고 국민들과 끊임없이 소통하는 노력 계속해 나가겠습니다. 감사합니다.
More than 180,000 policy recommendations were made by the People's Transition Commission. According to the Blue House, 99 of them have been reflected in the Moon administration's new policy initiatives and tasks. 1,700 others are also currently being reviewed to be implemented. President Moon will have to now display his ability to cooperate with the National Assembly to make these policies a reality. Hwang Ho-jun, Business Daily.
Korea's nuclear power plants in the first half of this year were operating at their lowest output level since 2013. The Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company says the country's reactors were operating at 75% of their full capacity. The country's nuclear operator said this was primarily due to wear and tear and corrosion in old reactor buildings and unforeseen maintenance work. Operating levels had been seen between 85% and 94% since 2001, except in 2013 when it fell to 76% due to a scandal involving falsified safety tests. President Moon has pledged to reduce Korea's dependence on nuclear power and back in June scrapped all plans to build more nuclear power plants. The race is on to develop future technologies that will drive forward the so-called fourth industrial revolution. Here in Korea, there are calls for a regulatory overhaul to free up innovators who have been blocked from launching businesses as they find themselves caught in a web of restrictions. Our Eunice Kim has the story.
Data is being called the oil of the 21st century, holding promises of revolutionary change set to transform the industrial landscape of the future. It's a general opinion of experts that whoever has secured the most quality big data will be positioned to dominate the global market, which is also why behemoths such as Google, Facebook, and Apple have been rising in value. But in Korea, data is harder to get to, blocked by more than 20 different laws that regulate personal information, which prohibits access without the individual's consent. In the case of telemedicine, that is, the remote diagnosis and treatment of patients, it's gaining traction in Japan, US, and Europe as next-generation medical treatment. But in Korea, it's prohibited under the country's medical act that outlaws doctors from diagnosing without directly seeing the patient. And medicines cannot be purchased anywhere but a pharmacy. In the case of drones, it's virtually impossible to develop one beyond toys due to a pile of rules covering everything from the drone's weight and flight test requirements. Experts say Korea needs to fundamentally change its regulatory framework if it's going to be a player in the fourth industrial revolution. They say it needs to be changed to allow free exploration, such as in the US and China, and regulate only those areas that prove to be problematic after the fact. They also suggest creating regulation-free zones that allow companies to freely create and test future technologies if they're going to have any chance against their bigger global competitors. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Being able to generate electricity at the tap of a finger may sound like a concept out of a science fiction novel, but researchers over in the US have done just that, developing a tiny generator that can produce enough electricity to power a light bulb with a simple touch of a finger. Our Lee Joo-young tells us more.
In this video, you can see the dozen or so LED bulbs light up as the researcher taps the transparent gel attached to the paper. After that, you can see one researcher stretching the material as another taps it. In that demonstration, the LED bulbs again light up as expected. The US team has invented a nano generator made up of elastic hydrogels and polymers that generates triboelectricity, the same type of electricity generated when rubbing your feet on a carpet or running a comb through your hair. The technology is not only able to generate electricity through contact, but other natural body movements such as walking or shaking, making it perfect for wearable devices.
The nano generator could replace existing batteries since it's lightweight, transparent, soft, and easily powers devices through human motion.
Commercialization of the technology will depend on how much energy can be generated. Current nano generators can only provide enough power for a digital clock, but researchers are working to scale up the technology to the point where it has sufficient capacity to power smartphones in the near future. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. That applies to aged buses forced into retirement. With some elbow grease and sparks of creativity, these vehicles were transformed into new spaces that provide great joy to many. And our Lee Ji-won hopped on board these unique rides.
In Changseong-gun County, Jeollanam-do Province in the southwest of Korea, a colorful bus captures everyone's attention as it heads toward its destination. Upon its arrival, children rush to hop onto the vehicle.
We are the Zombie Busters media band. The bus takes children into a different world, where they've become zombies due to a virus. And with music and other activities held inside this bus, the children find a cure for the virus.
Lately, a growing number of old vehicles, especially buses, have been remodeled into cultural spaces. And the Zombie Busters media band is a part of a larger project that brings these fun activities around the country via buses, trucks, and ships, with the goal of providing cultural activities to children in rural areas. By sharing what they want to be when they grow up, children get to actively express their thoughts and stories, which they sing together at the end of the program as a cure to the zombie virus.
It was fun pretending to be a zombie, and I enjoyed sharing my dreams and turning them into a song.
I learned the importance of working as a team. It was fun.
These rural areas don't have well-equipped facilities suitable for cultural activities. So by using buses not only for transport but also as a place to enjoy the programs, the project has become more approachable for local residents and children in the region.
But it's not just these buses that are being transformed. Even buses too old to run have undergone renovations into cultural facilities. At this playground in Bangak-dong in the north of Seoul, a very special library was launched on Thursday. This old bus, converted into a library for children, is open and free for everyone. It's already the third one of its kind in Dobong-gu district, and these libraries are earning much praise from local residents for their creative design.
With the stop-bolts and windows still in place, the library still looks like a bus, but at the same time, it has a whole different feeling for the children inside.
From colorful couches to playful designs, the inside of the bus is almost like another playground for the children.
I think it's a great place for children to just come by, have fun, and read books. And maintaining the features of the bus, I think, entices children's creativity.
The area didn't have many children's libraries or appropriate venues that could be used as libraries. But by using old buses, we were able to make a small yet well-stocked library. And thankfully, children seem to find it cool and fun.
And converted buses can be a playground not just for children, but for grown-ups too.
The Star Plaza in Sinchon in the west of Seoul is known as a cultural haven, and one place to fully take in the area's young spirit and learn about its cultural history is aboard the Sinchon Playbus.
From CDs and books to LP records, the Sinchon Playbus offers its visitors a wide range of entertainment options. And it also gives visitors a glimpse into Korea's recent cultural history with descriptions of how music and pop culture developed in Sinchon over the years.
I used to come to Sinchon quite often when I was a student, but coming here with my son feels completely different. The displays on Sinchon's history remind me of the past and allow me to share those good old days with my son.
The bus also provides young musicians and DJs with the opportunity to have their podcast and music live streamed onto the streets in Sinchon.
I think it's a very worthwhile experience to have my voice heard from over 20 speakers in Sinchon, and I think it's a great place to make many special memories.
These outside-the-box transformations are opening new platforms for people to approach culture in a unique and memorable way. Lee Ji-won, Business Daily.
And that does it for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to check back with us then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.